say, to talk and share some of his experiences. First of all, for those of you who aren't familiar with Samuel's work, or if I can use the word sample, is that familiar? His work, he basically is a professor of architecture at the College of Architecture and Design and Construction at Auburn University, and has for a number of years now been working with an outreach program called the Rural Studio, which he's going to share with us a little bit tonight. He's also a partner in the firm Mockbee Architects in Canton, Mississippi, and has won numerous awards for their work that they have had published in a variety of journals that you may have seen. Some of the awards that I think are significant are listed here, quite numerous, but a few that I'd like to mention. One is the Honor Award from the American Institute of Architects, which is something that's given to 10 architectural delineators. So we may think of Mockbee's work as basically as part of the experience of architecture, but he's also fantastic with pen and drawing and communication, if that's recognizable. As well as the Grand Foundation Grant, where the title of the award was Nurturing the Culture in the Rural South. And I'm sure we're going to hear more about that tonight. And most recently, he has won the 1995 Education Honors Program Award given to the Rural Studio, which was given by the American Institute of Architects. And as many of us are aware of, it's for opportunities for educators and their work in the classrooms to be recognized by the AIA. And I think that the Rural Studio has been recognized is really quite worthwhile. The Rural Studio itself is a design education program that demonstrates commitment to universal principle of people and place, and that the two of those together really matter. And the Rural Studio itself is in Hale County, Alabama, really in the deep of the South, where the cultural and historical significance of that can be felt and immersed and experienced directly by the students who are engaged in the work. And just on a final note, my first contact with Senator Mockbee was in 1990 when he was a visiting professor, a distinguished professor at Clemson University. And myself, basically a Yankee living in the South, he really taught me to, and my family, I'd like to say, to enjoy the South in its heat and its poverty, and really to appreciate it for something I think until really talking with him, my eyes hadn't been open to. So I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to welcome Samuel Mockbee to Ball State.
Well, I want to thank y'all for inviting me up here this evening, particularly for bringing in such nice weather. You have to understand, this is March, February, January, right? And when I head back south tomorrow, I'll try to blow some warm air this weather. There are several people here this evening who have heard me before. To that extent, I apologize for being redundant tonight, to the degree that I am. And but I'm going to assume that the majority of y'all are not familiar with me or my work. And I could even say that there's going to be 10% of this audience tonight that's going to be able to repeat everything I have to say, just like a tape recorder at the end of the lecture will be able to repeat back exactly what principles I've tried to demonstrate. And then there'll be another 10% of y'all tonight who will go through this lecture without remembering anything that I have to say, much less who I am or where I'm from or or even where you are once this lecture's over with. And that leaves the other 80% of y'all who, I understand, will have sexual fantasies through this whole thing. And as I like to point out, it makes an architect feel pretty good when you can bring so much pleasure to so many people. I sincerely appreciate all of you coming out tonight on a Monday night, whether this bad, Monday Night Football, up against Monday Night Football. So with that in mind, I'm going to at least try to give a lecture that is the best I can, and we'll cover a wide range of my practice, and more or less will choreograph or my curriculum vitae as from a young architect to a now middle-aged architect, and try to demonstrate the course or the path that I've been taking and what it means to me and what I think its significance might be to any of you, particularly you students who are fixing to enter into the profession. And so what I'm going to try to address are some basic questions that every architect, regardless of the age or type of practices, it seems is always asking. And so what I'd like to do is well, first of all, take you through what I call a couple of epistles here. And then by doing that, by reading some of these thoughts that I have about this wonderful profession, then I'll try to make some sense of how my thoughts have impacted my work or they still is impacting where I am as an architect practicing now as a middle-aged architect going into the end of the 20th century. But again, as I say, it really makes no difference what sort of practice you are, or really what age you are as an architect, because we're always asking, it seems, such question as, what do you hope to achieve as an architect? And how do you reconcile the divide between architecture as a social art and as a business? And equally, the great divide between the haves and the have-nots. And what does being an architect mean? The answer to these types of questions are different for each of us and for each generation. And that is the predicament each of you, in your own particular and unique way, must deal with. All architects expect and hope their work will act as a servant, in some sense, for humanity, to make a better world. That is the search we should always be taking. There are no clear-cut definitions or assured pathways in dealing with these types of questions. However, there are some basic ethical principles that each generation of architects will always be forced to face and react to, and that is what I'm going to try to address and demonstrate here tonight. Now, first, we must imbue our work with a moral sense. And architecture, more than any other art form, is a social art and must rest solidly on the social and cultural base of its time and place. And for those of us who design and build, we must do so with an awareness of a more socially responsive architecture. And also, those of you who make the built world need to acknowledge that you have moral and ethical responsibilities for the people you design and build for. And the desires and hopes of these people who experience your work merit your most profound commitment. And as a social art, architecture must be made where it is and out of what exists there. The architect's job is to make architecture labeled under the given conditions of a particular place. And whether it's Mason's Bend, Alabama, or Sharon, Mississippi, or Muncie, Indiana. The architect's primary connection is always with place, and not just the superficial qualities of place, but with the ethical responsibility of shaping the environment, of breaking up social complacency, and energizing one's own community. Now, I can't give advice on establishing a moral sense. The best I can do is try to assure you that you must be serious about taking control of your own life's education, about righting wrongs and having a resolve to a long-term commitment, a lifetime commitment to this thing called architecture. Now, second, the necessity of observing is of utmost importance. In doing so, I'm convinced you will cultivate a thorough sense of awe about the physical world. And while each of you must have your head in the clouds of exalted ideas, you must simultaneously be able to reach down, pick up a handful of soul, feel its texture, smell it, understand its properties, and cherish its life-giving qualities. In accomplishing this, we can transfer the notion that it is the physical world around us that is the ultimate and true teacher of everything we make. And also, for those of you who have eyes, please use this opportunity to survey your own backyard, either to see what makes it special, individual, and beautiful, or noting the unjust power of the status quo, or the indifference of the intellectual community or the religious community in dealing with social complacency or shaping the environment. It takes a peering out at your contemporary landscape before commitments can be started, accomplished, and finished. And within this principle of seeing and observing, then observing becomes the agent actively demonstrating that the poetic reality of architecture is not only interwoven with the collective life of a unique place, but with the responsibility to nudge and cajole and inspire its people and its future. The third principle is that in every undertaking, you need to diligently employ portrait and a sense of wonder. It is the sense of wonder that informs your imagination and sends it on the poetic path. And therefore, it is important to give your critical attention to your ability to feel and your ability to think, and to use these gifts to enter the landscape of the imagination. This is the state that brings architecture into an accord with the natural world, with the supernatural world, with your fellow human beings, and with God. Architecture will make itself understood. There is something divine in the work of architecture. We must maintain a simple faith in the wonder of our own imagination, intellect, and goodwill. So it is these three principles, the ability to apply a moral sense to your work, the importance of observing, and the ability to apply a sense of wonder to the work. And it is upon these best qualities in the making of architecture that we must spend all our strength, and if we do, our work will receive the title of architecture. Now, before showing the work, I'd like to explain a little bit about my own personal background, about being both blessed and cursed as a Southerner. I grew up in North Mississippi. For those of you who are not familiar, that's the name of William Faulkner's yacht, the Catawba. Coca, my partner, also grew up in North Mississippi. We are first cousins, 6 generations removed. It sort of reminds you of Deliverance in a way. As Southerners, our heritage is part of our character. My great-grandfather was with the Mississippi Forest Rangers under Colonel W.C. Faulkner, and then later with General Forrest. So I grew up recreating the great battles of Rice's Crossroads and visiting the battlefields of Vicksburg and Shiloh. Now, this is a slide of Bloody Pond at Shiloh. And during the battle of April 6th and 7th, the wounded drank from this pond, so at the end of the 2 days of fighting, the water had turned completely red with blood from both sides. And this is one of 5 mass Confederate graves at Shiloh. There are 721 bodies stacked 7 deep. And for me, growing up, these places had a supernatural power to them. My world was about the past. My imagination was about reliving the past. So these were my heroes growing up in the segregated South in the 1950s and early 1960s. And later, as I became a man and was drafted into the Army and sent out to a much larger world, I came to realize the contradictions that coexisted in my world. That I had come from an isolated world where lies were being confronted by the truth. That I had come from a South that was attached to fiction, false values, and a willingness to justify cruelty and injustice in the name of those values. And some years ago, I was outside my hometown of Meridian, Mississippi, and I had to pull over and stop for a road grader. And while I was waiting, I got out and walked around this graveyard, and I noticed this particular grave. As it turned out, this is the grave of James Chaney. James Chaney is one of the 3 civil rights workers killed during the summer of 1964. He would be a man about my age today. And more importantly, I have come now to believe and to know he defines who I am and who I am not. He represents the true heroes of the South. He's a true hero by the fact that he had the courage to risk his life and to accept responsibility. His courage was a gift to me and to all of us. As architects, we're also given a gift, and with it a responsibility, though certainly much more passive than James Chaney. But the question for us is the same as it was for him. Do you have the courage to make your gift count for something? Do you have the courage to make your presence felt on earth and felt for good? Now, this is a slide of the Ark of the Covenant being built in Vicksburg, Mississippi by the Reverend H.D. Dennis. I know of no other architect working with this amount of passion. Beat your heart out, Frank Gehry. What is so remarkable is that his message is the same as in the story, The Dreams of a Ridiculous Man by Dostoevsky, where he says, and I quote, "It's an old truth, a truth that's been told over and over again, but in spite of it, it finds no place for it. The main thing is to love your neighbor as yourself. That is the main thing, and nothing else matters." Every piece of architecture should express some moral, and by this moral, the merit of the work judged. If it does, it deserves the title of architecture. Now, the architectonic challenge, whether you're an architect in Mississippi, or California, or Indiana, is how to nurture a rich culture, and how to avoid being stunned by the power of our modern obligations, that we lose focus on the needs that architecture answers. So the work I present this evening is seeking to reflect an attachment to locale, not necessarily literally, but by accepting the special qualities inherent in the place where the act of building occurs. So here endeth the epistle. Now, with that, I'm going to take y'all through chronologically through my practice over the last now 20 years and talk about some projects that I think have been significant along the way. This is in my hometown now, Canton, Mississippi, and where these houses were being torn down in a flood district, down in the black part of town. This is a typical southern town where the railroad comes through the middle of it, and it separates the town economically, racially, and the city follows for tearing these houses down in a flood district. And the Catholic nun went to the alderman asking that she couldn't buy these houses for $1 and then move them out into the county where people were living. Focus that for the mark. People living in shacks like this and in conditions like this. And as I like to tell my California architect friends, they talk about deconstruction. Well, we're in the South been dealing with deconstruction since Reconstruction. So these shacks, relative to the ones that they were tearing down, were certainly worse condition. So she wanted to move those and put these folks into better conditions. So I called her up and asked her if she needed some help, told her The next thing I knew, she had me lassoed, and I was out helping move these houses. She actually moved 40 houses. She was supposed to take 39, but she ended up stealing one house from a slumlord, and she didn't realize it. And the slumlord didn't realize it until about 8 months later. And then, when he discovered his house was gone, he was going to sue, and then realized it was a Catholic nun, and back off. So anyway, even after moving those 40 houses out into the county, there were still families living in conditions that are below poverty level, and still are even today. This is in 1982, and this family was living in this shack. This is Butch Johnson and his family. All 7 of his children were born in that shack right there. And so she was concerned about them, and I said, well, why don't we do a project where the office will design and build a house and donate labor materials. So we did, and we got to drawing, designing, came up with this house. We tell them architects involved because the door was at a skewed entrance, fashionably skewed. But it also actually, what it does serve a purpose. That dormer was acting as a study hall. I'll show you. And here we are in construction out there. This is 1983. And it took us about 8 months to build it. And you can focus these for me, Mark. And here the house is finished. The dorm up there is really acts as a study hall for the 7 children to go up and study. It was a little over 1,000 square foot house with 3 bedrooms. But it was really the idea with the dorm and the study hall was this: through education that these children, if they're going to pull themselves out of the curse of poverty, we're going to have to do it through education. At least that was the intent. The house built in '83, and then about 1990, burned down in about 15 minutes after Butch Johnson's father had been burning green pine, wood burning stove, and the flue caught on fire, and went up. So now I doubled our trailer. But from that project, we were approached by the Clarion Ledger, the largest newspaper in the state, that had been purchased by the Gannett folks, the people who own USA Today. And they put out a program each year where they dole out a couple $1 million to different communities that have their newspapers for different community projects. So our paper came to us and asked us if we would put together a housing program, and we would design and build 3 houses similar to Butch Johnson's house. And so we met with them and then picked out 3 families and designed these houses specifically for those 3 families. And this is the Day family. She has 6 children. There's a little bitty trailer. And so this house was designed for her. And then this is the Boones. And the Boones are a 3-generation family. There were 20 people living in that shack right there without any running water. The mother has 12 children. The daughter has 6 children. 20 people without running water. And so this was a house built for them. It's some sort of double image, mother, daughter, on one side, daughter on the other. Like Mark. And then this is the Luckett family. This young man, I really don't know what has happened to him today. It should be about grown by now. But behind that wall right there are academic achievement awards that he had won. So his father was a pulpwood hauler, and so we designed. He was always working on his truck, trying to keep it running out in the sun. And so this house was designed so that he could pull his truck up on there and then work on the truck with shade. Now, what happened was that we did this in the summer of '86. These 3 designs, put them together, put the program together, gave it to the editor of the Clarion Ledger so that he could then present our proposal to the Gannett Foundation in New York City in the fall. So by about this time in the year, the editor left Jackson, flew to New York to give our presentation. And we didn't receive the award. The net folks shifted their emphasis from the housing program to the literacy program. And so, and I say cynically, so they can sell more money on papers, newspapers, make more money. But of course, the literacy program is a wonderful program. I was real disappointed that we didn't get the award to get these 3 houses built. We had to take these houses, these plans, and put them in a drawer in the hope that I could ultimately get them built, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I'll tell this real quick story about, this is Foots Johnson, the house that we've done. The editor for the paper had used Foots Johnson's house, the one I just showed you we had built, as an example, as a demonstration project that he could show the folks up in New York City. And then, along with these slides and drawings of the houses, the 3 houses we designed. And so he was sitting in the lobby, waiting to go into this sophisticated New York board where he was going to present this. And he realized he didn't know Foots Johnson's Christian name, that all he knew about was his nickname, Foots. And of course, you all realize that everybody in the South, we're calling me Samuel Walker. Everybody in the South has a nickname. And so the editor realized that it would be disrespectful to go in and particularly this morning panel and use Foots's nickname instead of his Christian name. So he was panicked about that. And sitting in the lobby, so he picked up the phone and called me and said, "Mark, what's Foots's first name? I don't want to use his name." His nickname. I said, "Well," he was, I could tell by the inflection in his voice, he was concerned. And so I'll call you right back. I call his grace. I mean, his children call him Foots, his wife calls him Foots, everybody calls him Foots. So but I can tell you what it was. So I tried to call his sister Grace. Couldn't track it down. Now, at this point, I'm going to add in my little story about remind everyone in the audience that outside this room, hardly anybody can, pedestrian can name an architect. They might name Frank Lloyd Wright, but they don't know who your eyes know Frank Gehry, Michael McChesney, and any of those folks are. And so I called him back, knowing that he was in fashionable New York City. He needed to have a Christian name, and that this editor wouldn't know if I was giving him the right name or not. So I told him that his first name was Philip. That was Philip Johnson. He was showing. And I suspect that New York Philip Johnson like that. I know Phillips would like the comparison too. Oops. Let's see. Well, from there, this is about 86, 87. In the meantime, my career started to move along, and but still a young architect, struggling to get work, bigger work. But in the meantime, Board of Aldermen came to me and said, "Look, Mike, we want you to draw the plans of this fire station we're going to build. So it'll be a metal building. All we want you to do is draw the plans. We don't want you doing any of that weird stuff you do. We just want you to draw the plans." I said, "Oh, okay. I needed to work," so I said, "Well, okay, I will." And so the fire station was on the other side of the town from the downtown. The railroad track went right through it. They were concerned that when freight trains stopped there, they wouldn't be able to get to these little shotgun houses, that they would be criticized and rightfully so if they weren't there. It would only take 15 minutes for one of these little houses to run up. So they asked me to design this fire station set right along the side of these shotgun houses, and you can kind of see it. But again, they didn't want anything weird. So we get through with I get about 80% into construction. Get a phone call from the mayor. He wants to know what this canopy is out front. And I said, well, I have to back that up. So, when I finished doing the drawings, y'all have to understand that most clients, regardless of how wonderful they are, most clients are wonderful, don't know how to read technical drawings very well. I mean, they can read floor plans, they might read a section, but they don't really understand elevations. Again, technical drawings, they can understand schematic drawings. And so I went to have the plans approved, knowing that they were a little bit apprehensive about anything I was going to show them anyway. I went and wrote out floor plans to, and I'll tell this story so you might want to use this one day in your practice. I wrote out the floor plans and really just dwelled on the floor plans. How big the front bays were, how many rooms folks you could sleep in the dormitory, where the chief's office was, how big the kitchen was, that sort of thing. Really just bored them out with the floor plan. And they like to talk floor plans, how big things, big rooms, doors, what door swings. Got through the floor plans, and then quickly I went on through the elevations and sections. No one said anything, and no one mentioned this canopy out front. I got through, I was rolling the plans up and said, okay, put it out for bids. I was rolling the plans up, and the mayor stopped me and said, Mark, what is these two dots in front of the front door? And he was talking about the post shade of the columns of the plan. And I said, oh, Mayor, that's just some columns holding up a canopy in case some school children come to visit. It's raining. I said, oh, okay. So rolled on up, put it out for bids, gave them money, started building this thing. I get a phone call from the mayor, and he says, Mark, what the hell is this thing out front? And I said, Mayor, that's that canopy I told you about. He says, now, is that in the bid? Is that inside the money? I said, oh, yeah, it's already paid for. We're well, you know. He said, oh, okay, I like that. Then I get a phone call from Billy Ray, the fire chief. His name is Billy Ray. I lie not. His name is Billy Ray. And the fire chief Billy Ray said, Mark, what the hell is this thing out front? And I said, Billy Ray, if you stand back and look at that, that's a fireman's cap. He says, oh, I like that. Then I get a phone call from Bill Mosby, the alderman who had first contacted me about doing the work. He called and says, Mark, what the hell is this thing out front? I told you we didn't want anything weird. I said, Mosby, that's what we architects call a M roof. It stands for Mosby. He says, oh, I like that. And I tell the story, one, so I like to tell these stories, but two, to tell you young architects that you have to do what you'll do. Well, I followed to the school, Fulton School, what William Fulton said about getting a book published, that he would do anything that it took to get a book published. If it meant stealing money from his mother's purse, then he would do it in order to get his books published. Now, I don't want to tell you to do that. It might help you do something good. Again, the work goes on. This is really about 81, 82, this little church. A simple little design. This is another little church in McGee, Mississippi, Church of Christ. This is about 86, 87. Coker's on board, another partner is on board. We're starting to grow to a little bit bigger, old 8-man firm. And this is one thing I should say about this little church is that you can see where the lower windows will be a person standing up, the big tall windows, then diffuse the light, and that light come in from the sides, and then the skylight above the baptismal font. There's the, you can see how tall a person can be as it goes. Mainly it's about letting it, like all architects, trying to deal with letting light in to a building, getting light into a space. That's what this project was all about. This has to do with exhibit design work. I show this because I want to sort of expose y'all to some opportunities that you might not quite realize that exist outside of, well, inside of discipline of architecture, but another sort of area, that's exhibit design. I backed into this having won the Mississippi Pavilion at the World's Fair in '84. And this is I did a 15,000 square foot exhibit for the United States Information Agency that traveled to Russia. The propaganda on the program was American architecture, product design, design, education, and graphic design in the United States. In other words, the propaganda again is that our way of life and democracy is conducive to creative thinking, creative design. And this is about 89 and 90, or 89, right when the USSR started to crumble. So you saw people that were waiting outside just to get in to see this in Moscow. So I take full credit now for the fall of the USSR, having seen our propaganda, power of design. And then the other reason I tell the story, I'm still about the next one, is that I came into this exhibit design work having won the Mississippi Pavilion. And then I did some work in Singapore, and did some work in the Philippines. And it's a discipline that has some quite talented people in it, but there's not nearly the competition that's in this room right here, as far as numbers. And then again, as far as making money, it's fairly lucrative if you everything that a lot of folks like to mission. But when I won the Mississippi Pavilion in 1984 to do the Mississippi World's Fair, it was a design-build contract. And the design-build contract, this is the first time the state of Mississippi had ever entered into a design-build contract. And it was for $1.8 million. And so I won it in May, and the state came to me and said, look, Mockbee, why don't you go ahead and get started, but since we've never done a design-build contract before, we want you to go ahead and get started because we want to be sure the pavilion opens on time, because we want to make sure that we open on time, because the state of Mississippi is always last in everything. We don't want to be above any more jokes, so we want you to go ahead and get started. So I said, fine, and I had a bunch of Mississippi State students working with me at the time, and we all started working. Well, this is in May. And May comes, May, June, July, August, September, October. 6 months come and go. The great state of Mississippi hadn't paid me the first minute. Now, I'm telling this story so that one day you will remember this, because once you get into practice, once you become a principal and a firm, you will soon realize the most important thing that is of utmost importance more than anything else is meeting payroll each day, or every week, 2 weeks, a month, never how it is, you're going to work it out for your employees to pay them. You're going to discover that that's going to become the primary concern as an architect, is how you're going to meet the payroll each 2 weeks. And so they had gone through 6 months without any money. I signed subcontracts with vendors, and fabricators, and exhibit designers to get this pavilion done, and borrowed money from the bank. My banker pushed everybody just as far as I could to the limit, and finally no money coming from the state to back me up. And I was complaining. But in the meantime, I came in on Friday morning and walked in, and my office was real casual. Everybody in the office, I had about 6 people working for me, secretary, being mostly Mississippi State graduates, just recent graduates working on this Mississippi Pavilion. So I walked in, and the secretary said, morning, Simon, it's today's payday. Yeah, well, how much money is it? $70. About that time, everybody shifts and put their necks around, they're looking right at me. You know, you've got obligations, and again, once you become a principal, you'll often make payroll and go home without any money yourself in order to make payroll. And I couldn't never miss the payroll. So I said, not to worry, not to worry. We've done some work for a contractor earlier, and I talked to him in a week. He had promised to get me some money that would meet the payroll Friday. They had it to me by Friday. So I said, let's just wait and see what the mail brings, and check should be in the mail. So we waited about 11 o'clock. Y'all know the answer to the checks in the mail, and no checks there. So everybody's looking at me. I get on the phone, I call the contractor. He's out of town. I leave a message for him. He's going to be back in that afternoon. I asked him, please have a call. So I said, look, y'all, come on, I'll take you to lunch. Y'all pile my card. I go down to the bank, go in, write a check out, go to cash it. teller comes back and says, Mr. Mockbee, you only have $40. And I said, well, okay, give me $39. And so she gets me $39, and I take everybody to Wendy's. We have a big Wendy's lunch, and we'll go back. That afternoon, everybody sort of loafing around because they worried about whether or not they're going to get paid, because people were depending on them, families. And so I was a little worried, didn't know what I was going to do. And about that time, the phone rings, and it's the contractor. He's returning my phone call early that morning. And it says, oh yeah, I've got your check sitting right here. I said, thank you. He said, I'll put it in the mail to you. I said, nope, I'll send somebody over after. So I said, one person after the check, another guy after some beer, and the secretary started writing out all the checks. So she did all the checks. We all came back, passed out the payroll, and I met the payroll. One more, got through 1 more 2 week span. I was sitting there, by this time it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I was relaxed. You know, I just dodged another payroll bullet. We're sitting there, we're all kind of talking. About that time, a distinguished older man, gray-headed attorney, came walking in the office. And I said, well, can I help you? He says, well, I'm looking for Samuel Mockbee architect. I said, well, I'm Samuel, you want a beer? And he said, no, sir, Mr. Mockbee, I've got a check here for you. He pulled out a check. It's made out to Samuel Mockbee architect for $750,000. And I turned to everybody in the office and I said, go get hard liquor. We Xerox the check, we passed it around. You know, I'm getting on the phone, I'm calling everybody, you know, money's coming out, coming out. We're sending out checks out today. So, but about that time, by this time, after my feet landed on the ground again, I realized it was about 5:30, the banks closed. They all was $750,000 in hand to me to get it to the bank. So I ran back down to the bank, pulled out my deposit slip, make sure all the zeros in the right spot. And then I purposely waited on that same teller that early in the morning. Waited my turn. So I patiently, I got up there, I stood there for a second. I said, you know, my account's a little low. I slid that check in the bank. And she whipped out the deposit slip like it was $75 and handed it back to me. But all zeros were correct. I stood there and didn't move. Nothing was said. I just deposited $750,000 in your bank, did I not? Yes, sir, Mr. Mockbee. Well, I was trying to deposit. Well, that's $750,000, isn't it? Yes, sir, Mr. Mockbee. Well, aren't you impressed at all? She said, oh, sure, here, have a lot of coffee. That was, but I don't mislead you. By that next Monday, I was about down to, well, I went down $70. At least I was flush. I was flush. We go back to practice again. That's what you'll end up doing. Well, anyway, this goes on. That happened in 83, and then the farm picks up. Coke comes on board. Woollen comes on board, and we start doing some bigger work. And this is at the University of Mississippi. This is about 87, 88, 89. This is Barton Observatory. It's about a $3 million project, restoration, a nice project. But out of that, then we got a real nice commission, about a $10 million job to do an acoustics lab. It's a state-of-the-art acoustics lab. Now, at this point, this is about when I took the preliminary schematic designs up to see the chancellor, he took a look at it and walked through it and said, oh, this is great, this is great. It didn't have any of the historical references that y'all see on this elevation now, the pediments, the columns, and that stuff. And y'all have to understand that the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, has had, it's an old university, it's got its campus plan was done by Homestead, and quite beautiful central campus, and with his antebellum Lyceum, and revival buildings. But also, Ole Miss has its recent history of civil rights, used over civil rights, and so the university's has done a great deal to overcome that sort of that stigma that was established in the late 60s and early 60s. And so, y'all, again, I know that I'm talking to the northern audience, but there are some African Americans who will not go to an any-golden house because of, not because of they don't like the building, but because of what it represents, all the pain that it represents. So that a family of 5 to 6 people who live in luxury, while the rest of 500 folks live on this myriad of burdens, beast burden, those beasts. So, I made that pitch to the chancellor. Thinking this historical references would just be not only architectural at the end of the 20th century, absolutely incorrect, but also culturally and socially, it could also be. And he said, look, Michael, I'm the client, you're the architect, I'm paying you to do this, I want these columns. I want you to put columns on this building. The alumni love it. So I said, okay. I went back and I put columns everywhere I could. Except for one spot that I wanted to put. So after that, this is about 1991. I get a phone call from Auburn, which is also in school, and they asked me to come teach for a year. And I told Copeland that I thought I could do that and take a break from this Ole Miss project. So it seemed like most of our bigger work was being bogging us down. I didn't want to spend another 4 years putting up columns on the university. So I took a sort of, and I'd been teaching in Mississippi State since '84, and as an adjunct, and so I decided to make a switch from being a full-time practitioner and adjunct academician to being a full-time academician and adjunct practitioner. So in '91, I moved, which I already, and started practicing. And all this will come full circle here in a second, start catching on while I'm telling you the stories, because, but in the meantime, we were also getting some pretty nice residential commissions, and I'm going to take you out through those real quickly, which really sort of kept breathing fresh air into the office. We were fortunate to have some clients, and you're only as good as your client. In the final analysis, you're only as good as your client. So much depends on your client, and then ultimately your contractor, ultimately your subcontractor, I guess even ultimately the painter is. This is the Barton House. This sits on 40 acres there in Madison County, Mississippi. It's in between Canton and Jackson. And it sits up on the knoll of a hill that one approaches from this north side right here. And you don't quite realize the view that's going to occur once you get around to the other side. And so the idea was to bring you up around the north side, and then it's a butterfly plane. You enter through that tower structure, and we're coming around. This again is the second side structure. Side coming around. This is the west side of the house. Again, the best room in these houses that I think should show you in every case, it's going to be the screen porch. And this is a screen porch above the carport, and it's open all four sides, so you get a nice breeze even in August. This is one of the highest points in the county. We have about elevation about 404 feet there. And you have this, once you're on this side, you have this beautiful view of Mississippi landscape. It's down at the Chiefs Crossway. So the house picks up down at the Chiefs. These are these textual slides. And the details, the cotton trailers, again, how these details are reinterpreted and abstractly interpreted into the house. Then there are spaces like this that occur. Everybody in this room is attracted to these kind of spaces, not necessarily. I'm talking about the spatial quality of this, where you have these nice tight spatial pressure occurs. A light, a window at the very top to add a little mystery, natural light coming into the space somehow. That sort of quality is what we as architects try to view in the work. This is the entry tower. Come in the door from the far right down there is the entry door. And right where the photograph is taken is a big Mick Jagger Andy Warhol print. And then, as I said, it's a butterfly plan. And then you spin off to the left to the private part of the house and to the right to the public part of the house. And you go through these real tight, low spaces. What we call fat man squeezes, barely get through, and then as you go through and it's sort of dark light, they shoot you out into these rooms that then open up and start to reveal or give up its secrets at that point. And then what I also want you to pay attention to things like this rooms within rooms. This is an angle nook within the dining room, living room, excuse me, or construction. We always do models of any project. If you really want to sell the project, and you really want your client to understand what you're doing, the best way to do it is to do a model. It always helps. And then the next project is the cookhouse. That house won the other house just won a record house award. And this house won a National AIA Award in '94. It's called the Jim and Rhonda Cook in Oxford, Mississippi. It sits on 400 acres. And what I would want you to, there are several principles here that I want you to pay attention to. The first one is that where you go out into the rural landscape and you see pendant buildings where you have a super shed that takes the elements, takes the sun in the living room, and then you put something of value underneath that super shed. And in this case, this is a cotton trailer, safely underneath the super shed. So that principle then shows up also in even modest houses. The South is the land of trailers now. So you have where you have your trailer, you build a super shed over that, make a porch under that. That porch will get enclosed, become a bedroom or a living room, and then the house will then continue to expand. So again, this principle, the super shed over something, protecting something, is at play at this design. Here's the super shed going up and the trailer being pulled in. And here's the final trailer in place. It's a two-story house, and then what would ordinarily be your grandmother's great attic that you go up and play in becomes an open chapel-like space. I'll show you just a second. Coming around the side. The program for this is quite unique in that the client asked us to design the house around their program of having animals that would actually come into the house itself. And they have over 50 lions, tigers, bears, and camels on the property. So here's the attic. It would ordinarily be an attic space. Then now becomes a great sunset porch that you go up and watch, catch a nice breeze, watch the sun go down, and have drinks. And an interior shot. Well, Mark, you're going to have to nurse these on through for me, please. And architect frame. We're putting in the table. Fletcher Cox, a woodworker, had designed this table. And it was part of the structure, the floor structure, so that they can, in other words, it's a permanent table. And then you see one cage there underneath the stair that allows a cougar to come in and while they're eating, stay in the cage while they're eating. And once they get through eating, they let the cougar, or after playing cats or whatever they want, roam the house. And then I don't know if there are any building officials in the audience tonight. I hope not. Those are handrails up there. Those for the second loft area, and they work quite well because certainly when you're drinking, you don't get too close to this thing. You inhale yourself. This is the sketch that out of my sketchbook time when I was designing this thing, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how sketches and the importance of sketching and drawing, what that means to me. And this photograph was taken while I was in construction, or while I was being elevated to assistant welder doing those handrails. But I wanted to say that for me, drawing and painting are the initial influences for the making of architecture. The sketch is always out front. It sees ahead and deeper to what is already on your paper. The initial sketch is always an emotion, not a concept. In the beginning, it's important to allow the imagination to move freely without a hindrance, or any hindrance, from a preconceived form. It's a feeling that suggests the possibility of an idea. For me, it's the act of drawing and painting that allows the hand to come into an accord with the heart. And when that happens, there comes a moment when the marks of the sketch utter the first deeper knowledge of the thing to come, that thing evoked with the architecture. And I say that particularly this day when we all own computers, all can, phone C, because those are wonderful tools that we all certainly use, and I use them. Real life would be revolved around that involved as computers involved. But there'll always be a need to take that pencil, that chalk, that brush in your hand and still draw and make that connection to the paper. There's something divine about that our ancestors have been doing since we were in the cave, and will continue to do it long after we're gone. So you can sort of see how those things have been involved themselves into this piece of work. Again, one of the nicest rooms in this house is the screen porch. And then on top of the screen porch, this is the steps leading up to a jacuzzi. And then you see there's a door down on the right there, purple marks. Now this has been overtaken with wisteria. There you see. The contractor lived on the site and was quite proud of this house. And the fact that his chimney goes up about 400 feet, about 50 feet. It seems 400 feet. Yep. And Cole was in two directions, and he was quite proud of himself. This is the interior of the introverted room. Fireplace, it's 10 by 10, about 18 feet tall. One can sit out a stove, big wood. The house is very open except for this one room. There you see the cages. These are cougar cages. There are lions and tiger cages back behind us about 100 yards. And bears. Lions, tigers, bears, and oh, construction site. It doesn't get any better than this, really, truly. I think all architects know their building's best at about 80%. And this shows again, the fireplace is right here, then it goes up, and flue shoots off to the right, and goes on up the chimney itself. So you have this 10 by 10 room, and then behind that 10 by 10 room, behind the 10 by 10 fireplace room, you have a powder room, and then right behind that is the den for the cooler. Right behind that is the den for the cooler that lives off, two coolers that live off to the left over here. And so in the office we designed it so that there is a water closet, the wall that separates the den and the lion's den from the powder room. There's a glass wall about 30 inches off the ground next to the water closet itself. So when someone comes in who hasn't been there before, they use the powder room, they go in. It's what we call in the office, scare the crap out of the prepper. And then this is a project, and I'm going to kind of pick up the pace here. This is a project called the Tallahatchie River in Mississippi. This was a spot that was the Civil War kept Grant from getting into Vicksburg, going down the Yazoo, headed back up, and then go back down to Mississippi. And the Star of the Western Circle right here, my client owned this particular spot that he was proud of, and he asked us to do a guest house tractor shed. This tractor underneath and the guest bedroom above. And this, what I want you to pay attention to is, I might have one of these. Right here, this base, this is a column base of steel rebars that go up to support the screen porch, and then continue to go on up. And this is what is called a spirit tree. And this is a cedar tree, then the limbs are cut off, and then these colored bottles are placed on that spirit tree. And what happens is, you put those colored balls out there, the sun hits the colored bottles, and then attracts any evil spirits or hints. And those things will then climb up in the bottle itself and get up in there. They can't get out, and they're caught in there, and keeps evil spirits off the property. This works too, though. Nothing to try. And if you put a blue bottle at the top, that's a hiking ball, let's work over there. A blue bottle at the top will keep lightning from striking the house also. That works too. I believe that works in Indiana as well. But there's the blue bottle, and that's one of my hiking bottles. And again, it's an elevated consistent level. And this is the house down at Fashionable Seaside. It's a corner right there. And again, like the other houses, the best room is always the screen porch. This, like Cook's, this is in the attic space, and makes for a great sleeping porch. And then the social porch is downstairs. This is a project. This is the house that's under construction right now. It should be finished hopefully next month on the Tennessee River. It manages to view straight down the Tennessee River. And we're up about 200 feet at this point, straight down. And that's where this house is being completed today. So maybe in a few years, y'all will invite me back to show you this house. It's got stair steps down, and then it stair steps down. This level right here, the bedrooms are all the way down underneath. So it's really 4 different levels in here. It's all open up and down. And the whole, like a view through a canyon out through here, and on out through these Tennessee River. Again, we always do models, and we really are trying to get a project good. Well, that brings me to the present phase of my sort of search. Again, all that sort of brings me up to date with professional work. Again, I'm going back to '91 and moving over to Auburn for a year to teach and full time. And there I decided to sort of, to make a transition from a full-time practitioner to a full-time teacher. And so, one of the reasons I felt I wanted to make a change, one of the reasons was I didn't feel I was maturing as a responsible architectural citizen. And the fact that those 3 charity houses that I showed y'all earlier had not been built still haunted me. I put them in the drawer back in '87 to hope I might get a building. Nothing seemed to happen now. So it still bothered me. And I believe what the poet Williams described about, said this to his architect brother, that the best architect would be the person with the most profound insight into the lives of the community. So I applied and received a Graham Foundation grant to execute a series of large murals in an attempt to extend the study of architecture into what I hope will and would be a finer human landscape. I'm interested in what might prompt and make possible the process of entering taboo landscape. In my case, the physical poverty of the deep south. And to also develop a discourse beyond merely looking at the effects of poverty, but how architecture and architects can step over the threshold of injustice and address the true needs of a neglected American family, in particular the needs of their children, of all Southerners and all Americans actually. Young children are the most likely to be living in poverty. In Mississippi, 1 in 4 lives below the poverty level. And these children don't have the same advantages as the rest of America's children. They will come of age without any vision of how to rescue themselves from the curse of poverty. So, the purpose of my placing paintings in the context of Lizzie Baldwin's home in Sharon, Mississippi, was to approach the neglected world directly through art. The intent is to be as evocative as possible in order to make both the life experience of Lizzie Baldwin and our limited understanding of it accessible to a stranger. If we are to broaden our views, we must first see something. Physical poverty is not an abstraction, but almost never do we think of impoverishment as evidence of a world which exists, and much less do we imagine that it's a condition in which we may draw enlightenment from in a very practical way. Now, the paintings try to establish a discourse between those of us who have become mentally and morally stalled in modern obligations to these families who have no prospects of such obligations. The paintings are by no means an attempt to aestheticize poverty. It's about stepping across a social impasse into an honesty that refuses to gloss over inescapable facts, and not just the facts of hardship faced each day, but also the facts of the spiritual strength of Lizzie Baldwin's family. And as adversity concerns writers and other artists who have lived through it, it can also create an opportunity even for the advantaged architect to step into the open and express the simple and the actual rather than the grand and the ostentatious. It's not about your greatness as an architect, it's about your goodness as an architect. It's not about your passion as an architect, it's about your compassion as an architect. So these paintings are part of Lizzie Baldwin's home in order to reveal an indigenous integrity that makes deceit and invasion impossible, and also to pay homage to her life. The paintings have been out there for almost 4 years now. They've been through Halloween parties, Christmas parties, Easter egg hunts, her 80th birthday party. They've been through all sorts of bad weather. Now, Lizzie Baldwin has a daughter, Bertha Baldwin. And Bertha Baldwin has had 3 children by one man and 2 by this one. And now, during the 4 years that I have known of him, he has remained aloof and independent of the family. He shows up only so often to help with the plumbing or the cutting of wood, A few times he played basketball with me and the two boys. So this painting is based on my trying to understand his circumstances and his relationship to Bertha. And even though I haven't gotten to really know him, I do know that I like him. And I believe he possesses a very accurate sense of the realities of his world. He understands the limitations imposed on him by us. And I believe it is the myth and the fear of this man that continues to divert our attention away from having any real human contact and understanding of poverty and forecloses any real solutions to the problem. So these paintings are an attempt at becoming an agency of moral choice. Now, I'm the first to admit that architecture won't begin to alleviate all these social woes. But what is necessary is a willingness to seek solutions to poverty in its own context, not outside it. What is required is the replacement of abstract opinions with knowledge based on real human contact and personal realization applied to the work that took place. Now, with that, that brings me to my work with the Rural Studio and the students at Baltimore University. This is a studio that is moved outside the classroom of the university and moved to the classroom of the community. In this case, the poorest county in Alabama, Kiley County, over in West Alabama, about 3 hours away from the main campus. Now, this is a quite beautiful landscape. This is also the very same town and county that Walker Evans came to, James Agee came to in 1936 to do a documentary on free white sharecropping families. And out of that, it's an article for Fortune magazine. Out of that article then came, it was never published, and out of that article came the Great American Classic, Letters and Outrage, Thunders and Lincoln. This is the very town, this is the very photograph of the same spot Walter Evans took downtown Greensboro, Alabama in 1936. Now, when you think of the antebellum Alabama, you're probably thinking of this area of Alabama that was quite rich agriculturally, quite rich black belt is an agricultural term for rich soil. So this is where all the great antebellum houses were built. They're quite magnificent scale, methods of construction, detailing, quality of space. If you can get beyond the social implications of what those big houses represent. Because right alongside of these antebellum houses still exist these pockets of poverty. And these photographs were taken in virtually in 1996, not 1936, 60 years ago. One would think. So this is the landscape that my students and I live. We occupy an old ramshackle antebellum house. The first thing we did was move in there and do some renovation to it and clean it all up so that we can then occupy it. And the students live and work out of this house. And we have a cook that comes in and fixes lunch and supper during the week, and then we take care of our own breakfast and weekend meals. And you know, this is you can tell you in Alabama you come to supper with your shoes off if you want to. This is what I call the redneck Taliesin side. So, and there are other days when dignitaries come. This is a congressman business that day. And so the students take 15 hours of credit out there. It's just meetings in between 12 and 16 students, depending on how many students I have in turn. They take 15 hours of credit. They take 3 hours special problems, which is a sort of a hire from the neck down, hands-on, where we work directly with the Department of Human Resources and Welfare Department with their protected clients. And this was a man, a cerebral palsy, 50-year-old cerebral palsy man, whose mother, 72-year-old mother, had always picked him up and carried him down those 2 steps, but had gotten so old she couldn't do it, not strong enough to do it any longer. And he had virtually become a shut-in over the last couple of years. So we rebuilt the porch and ramp for them, and actually did this in conjunction also with Mississippi State School of Architecture. And then this was a woman who had terminal cancer. She had a pretty nice house. She has a severely handicapped 19-year-old son, and the husband had to quit work, come take care of him. The roof had shingles been put on the lawn several years ago. It started to leak and rot. We had to run redeck and re-shingle the house. This is a 96-year-old man who had always lived on his property, wanted to down his property. The nursing, the Department of Human Resources did not want to remove him because he wanted to honor his request to stay. They were afraid that y'all might send down some of this cold air y'all's one winter and get freeze to death, which happens. In January and February, we get some pretty cold weather too. And so we went out and did a warm, dry room to get him through safely through last winter. He has since developed Alzheimer's and has been moved into a nursing home. But we were able to help him with his request. We do. This is building for burned out victims. This is a clothing closet that we got the bank to donate to us and to the Department of Human Resources, and we did repairs on that, got the roof all fixed, and use it now as a clothing closet. We do a good bit of trailer repair, particularly with children are at risk. They take a 15-hour, 3-hour, another 3-hour course is in sort of a history course and methods and materials course where we study these old developed houses and the structures to see what the materials and methods of construction are. And again, if one could get beyond the social implications of what this represents and just look at it as a piece of architecture, on that basis, the quality of space, the quality of construction that was built from 1830 to 1860. It's really quite out in the middle of nowhere. These magnificent structures were built. Actually, nothing this fine has been built in this century. I lament the fact that we can't have Sherman come back to the 20th century instead of march down through us the last century. I don't catch on to this stuff. Sherman came through in the 60s. General Sherman, Northern General, came through completely burned every town building in sight from Atlanta to Savannah, really into Montgomery. We need to come back in this century is what I'm saying. We worked so terrible that in this century we need to burn everything we built this century. We're getting a laugh out of y'all, but yeah. Part of this course is that we do a watercolor, Beaux-Arts style watercolor that is it's taught, and so they have to pick an antebellum structure and then do a nice layer. This is using 3 primary colors. This is kind of fun to do because it takes the whole quarter to do it, and layer by layer. And these are second-year students doing this. Primarily second-year students come out to the Brill Studio, along with some second, third, second, third, and fourth year, fifth year students, primarily second year. This term I have 8 second-year students, 2 third-year students, and 2 fifth-year students. Anyway, I'm taking y'all up through 9 hours credit. The other 3 credits are a seminar that we, that's now Praise Famous Man around the South. It's a seminar where we talk at the supper table about, discuss things that students have learned by being actually out there. But the main course that they take is the design build, where we work with the Department of Human Resources and select a family that is in need of help. And this is Shepherd and Alberta Brown. They have 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and they were living in this shack right here for the last 40 years. And this is our grandchild. She sweeps the front of her front like this. One, she's neat, but 2, to tell if any snakes have crawled in front and gone underneath her house. So, and that is her front door right there. And which you can see is no front door. In which 3 children, grandchildren, are growing up. In which I would challenge any of you to let one of your children spend the night here for one night. Or much less, let one of your children spend a week there or grow up in conditions like that. This is not 1896, this is 1996. The conditions like this still exist in these United States. And regardless of your political affiliation, which side of the aisle you think you might be on, what we need for you to do is come out of those aisles, walk down the middle of the aisle, walk right down into that dark hole right there, and enter that threshold, and into that world, because they don't have a clue as to how to come into your world. And all of us expect them to come to us. And none of us want to go to them. And that's the big difference. And until you do that, you'll always, until you cross over that threshold into their world, you're going to continue to have abstract opinions. As long as you've got abstract opinions, you don't have opinions. So, children growing up in these conditions are unnecessary. But for some reason, we seem to allow it to continue to happen. Shepherd Bryant, this is, he fishes the Black Warrior River. Black Warrior River is about 400 yards right behind us, behind this photograph right here. He fishes that river every day. If you were to take him away from here, I think he'd probably die in a few months. But he's a man of the earth. He lives off that river. He hunts, he fishes. He gets some SSI money, about $400 a month. And, but he can take care of himself and his family. And so when we were building out there, building his house, he would have fish fries and cookouts for us. And we had possum and deer. And, this is Richard, his 12-year-old son, who is as smart as anybody in this room. And one day, in February, when we were building the house, on Monday I came up and Richard was still there. And I asked Shepherd, so Shepherd, why is Richard still here? And not in school. Is he sick? He said, no, he's not sick. He didn't have any clothes to wear. I said, what do you mean he didn't have any clothes to wear? He didn't have any clothes that would fit him and that he could wear to school. I said, what do you mean he didn't have any clothes to wear? He said, well, Alberta had washed the clothes on Saturday and hung them out to dry on Sunday, and they froze that Sunday afternoon, and he didn't have any clothes that he could then, on Monday morning, that he could then get into wear to school. Well, that happens to all of us. It's quite common. And this is a watercolor, second-year student watercolor of their shack. And actually, it has there's quite a bit of charm to this shack. But that charm is quickly lost on a cold day when it's raining and everything is leaking and there's no running water. Now, it has been, which means, obviously, there's no facilities at all in this shack. So these students met with them and then started designing a house for Shepherd and Alberta Bryant. Then we met with them, had them come, and we went over the plans with them, and then we went out and started building the house. And here we are in construction, and as you can tell, it's out of hay bales. When we first brought the hay bales out, Shepherd really hadn't believed it when I told him to make them out of hay bales, and so went past it. So we brought the hay bales out and had them on the slab, and he came back late that afternoon and brought his 2 cows over his feet. Shepherd, you got to stop that. You eat your house. So this is the hay bale construction. Students, again, this is built by 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th year students, and everything I'm showing y'all from here on through the rest of this slide, this carousel, this evening is done by students. And when I say everything, I mean electrical, plumbing, the septic tank, another project, HVAC. It's all put in, done by design, done by these students. And here we are horsing around. And then here's the final house. And what you see to the right is a smokehouse that a fifth-year student did as a terminal project. As a terminal project. A fifth-year student who had worked 1 quarter on Shepherd's house and then asked if he could do his terminal project. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. The house itself is facing east. We're seeing the east sun come up right now. The only thing that Shepherd asked for was a front porch. So he can sit out and, with his children. Those 3 windows you see up high look like it's a second floor plan. It's not. It's just a clear storage to let air ventilate through and on out. North elevation, west elevation. Again, where we are, it's the heat that we have to really fight. We might have 2 weeks of bad weather in January, February, when it gets pretty cold in the teens. And but primarily it's the heat that we try and get out from. And so here's Shepherd. This is done by not only, it's also done by architecture students, landscape architecture students, and interior design students. And like all this porch that's out front is done by the landscape students. That wall sconce was a landscape student who took a chicken feeder and made that quite beautiful wall, a light fixture. Laid the porch, did all the shrubberies, all the drainage off of that, that sort of thing, the LAs. The interior design students said, "Mark, please don't tell them to do the interiors," but they bought new furniture and moved in. I think it's quite appropriate. Those are 3 bedrooms you see, those arched things for 3 children that have a little study carrel with them. So there's the front porch, and then you see the smokehouse off to the right there. And so this student wanted to build Shepherd this smokehouse, and so I told him when he could do it. And when he went to the Department of Transportation, asked the Hale County Department of Transportation, and asked them if he could go through their trash pile and get material. And they said, "Oh, sure, do it." And once they saw what he was getting, all this busted up concrete, they said, "Well, shoot, we'll just start delivering that to you if that's what you want." So they started bringing it out to him, and you see him right now putting, he's on the left, the student, putting a lintel in place, an arched lintel that's actually a concrete curve. And here is the interior side. But just as we finished this smokehouse for Shepherd, Alberta ran him out of it. She decided she wanted it for her storage room, so wouldn't let him have it. Put a freezer in there and her stuff. I said, "Well, Shepherd, aren't you disappointed you didn't get to use your smokehouse?" He said, "Mockbee, don't you realize nobody ever builds a rooster house? It's always a hen house, isn't it?" Those beams came off a closet hut that was being torn down, and Scott Stafford, the student, 50 students, saw them. They said, "Yeah, you can have them." And then, so we got those beams free, it's being thrown away. And all the road signs, of course, aluminum, and put on there and screw attached. So this thing is going to be there long after any of us are here. And this whole thing was built for $40. $40 out of his pocket. And there's Shepherd with his, and there's the lintel piece that we were putting up just a second ago with some concrete curb. But out of this, I had 3 other students who came to me and asked me that they too wanted to do a design build thesis project. And we were standing literally in that space there. I said, well, why don't y'all do a, I asked, what can we do? We were talking. I said, well, why don't y'all build a space like this, a little bit larger, we'll call it a chapel. And I said, okay, we'll do that. We'll be back out next year to do it. I'll show you that in a second. And then these are some slides that were taken by a colleague of mine, a man who used to work for me and now teaches at the University of Tennessee, David Fox. And he's going to, and they look mighty nice in those big walls on them. I think they're quite sublime. You see the Christmas tree. This is in January, the Christmas trees to the right. That's a possum on you, a skinned possum on the left hanging. So you can tell it can be fairly severe at times. This is single digits. Y'all, that's a March. Then this is a project we did that was a little bit different. This family is a couple that's in their 70s. They have this little restaurant right here. It's an ethnic restaurant. Everything south is fried. It's fried catfish, fried tomatoes, fried ice cream, fried catfish, fried chicken. But they were able to borrow $27,000, so we designed and built them a house for $27,000. These are second-year students, and they again built everything you see. This is the sort of slide that department heads and deans don't like to see. You got to do what you got to do to get these things done. I don't have a finished slide of that shot just yet. And we finished that house. And this quarter, the students are building a little 600 square foot house. It's under construction right now that they designed. And we're fast tracking it, I say, because we just had to for a handicap, a 73-year-old couple that's in a wheelchair. And so the house, the whole thing is all about handicap requirements. And so that house was built by sometime in the spring. But this is the project that these three students right here who worked on Shepherd's House came to me and asked if they could do a project. We said, well, okay, we'll do a chapel. And so we went to an alumni there at Hale County who was a big contributor to Auburn, and he let us use his property and gave a little small grant of about $5,000 to buy some materials with, and then also let them go into some of their old barns and get big timbers out of a lot of these barns that have fallen down, and get some of this red hard pine timbers that you see in the scaffolding behind you there. So these three students, the first thing they built was a little shed like this that they could camp out and sleep. They have their refrigerator over there for Hill County tea. Come in every so often. This will give you a hint of what it's all about. This is the under construction. They got a little backhoe and went out and dug for quite a while, and kept making it bigger and bigger. And I said, look, I'm going to dig yourself a hole you can't get out of here. But they were having such a good time with that backhoe, they just kept digging. And they thought that by putting, this is ram tires, and ram earth tires. And then they come back, and once they get a layer in, they come back in the rebars and stake it down through that. It takes about 20 minutes per tire to pound the tire, and there are a little over 1,000 tires in this chapel. And tiger paws are the best ones to use. So here they are pounding away. And then on certain days, this is when they were pouring the anchor for the ridge beam that you see going off to the right. The ridge beam thrust itself out into the landscape. It's 85 feet long, and it has to be held down. And there was a retired structural engineer that taught me in school and acted as our consultant on this. But the hard part, and any of you who built a barn will know that the hardest part of building a barn is getting that ridge beam up. And so they made the scaffolding, and then got this 85-foot long ridge beam, and we got a class to come out and set it all up. And then the lumber that is used for the scaffolding, I think I'm quite proud of these, figuring this out. The lumber used for the scaffolding was taken down piece by piece and then placed into the ridge beam as the trusses. You can kind of see. And here's the. I'm going to show you a better shot here in just a second of those trusses. And so they had to take it out piece by piece and take it back towards the anchor. When they got through, they had one piece of lumber left that we used on the house, the Rushman house. And this is the view looking out into the Alabama landscape. And in September, Steve Durden, one of the three guys, was married in the chapel and had a 350 people there, had a formal Catholic wedding. Not at this time of year, it was quite beautiful in October. This is also a fountain that starts here at the anchor and goes down through the chapel. Ends up coming off to the right over there. There you can see those trusses that were built, each one to hold the ridge beam. So the main purpose of the rural studio is to enable each student to step across the threshold and to design and build with some moral sense of service to the whole community, where their untapped wealth of imagination and technical gifts can be applied to the true enjoyment of a culture and place. Now, at the end of each quarter, we have a big pig roast for tea. So, any of you who want to head south and beat this cold weather here, you're more than welcome to come visit us at the little studio. And with that, I thank you all very much.